Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. My name is Gavriel Friedman, aka Rav Gav, signing in from Yerushalayim, Yer Kodesh, the holy city of Jerusalem. Welcome to the Discovery Seminar. The Discovery Seminar is a world-famous seminar that's been going on for quite some time now. And what is the objective, the aim, the goal is to try to show that this holy book called the Bible, the Torah, that it actually came from God. So I'm going to let you guys be the judge of that, as you will see as we go on. So let's just jump right in. There are many classes in the Discovery Seminar. I'm going to be sharing one with you, which is known as the 7 Wonders of Jewish History. Okay, so let us begin. You know, there was a conversation which happened quite some time ago between two people, one by the name of Blaise Pascal and the other by King Louis XIV. This is in the 17th century, the 1600s. And King Louis was what's known as agnostic. I don't know, maybe there's a God, maybe there isn't a God. Blaise Pascal, though, you may know him from Pascal's theorem. If you know mathematics, it was a famous mathematician. Or Pascal's wager from philosophy. He was a Christian mathematician and philosopher, very much believed in a God. And he was the advisor of King Louis, and he was having these conversations. How do you know there's a God? This is how you know. How do you know? This is how. How do you know? This is how. So one day he's like, enough. Pascal, I want you to give me clear evidence of a supernatural force. So he says, you want clear evidence of a supernatural force? The Jews, Your Majesty. The Jews. What? A Christian philosopher speaking to an agnostic king telling us that you want to know clear evidence? That would be the Jews. What is supernatural about us? So how about let's take a look at our friend Mark Twain. And he says the following idea. Mark Twain states, the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other people have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but have burned out, and they sit in twilight and however vanished. The Jews saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no firm in his ways, no weak in his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. All their forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? What is supernatural about us? How about the fact that we exist? The fact that we're still here today? That's phenomenal. I don't know how many of you wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and go, supernatural. You probably look in the mirror, you probably go, supernatural. And then you realize it's your roommate. But the fact that we still exist is amazing. Let's take a look at another quote. I want you to picture someone named Leo. Do you know somebody named Leo? Picture a Leo. Picture a Leo. Is that what you are picturing? So there's a guy by the name of Leo Tolstoy. Nikolovich, a writer, also not Jewish, who said the following idea. The Jew is the emblem of eternity. He who neither slaughter nor torture of thousands of years could destroy. He who neither fire nor sword nor inquisition was able to wipe off the face of the earth. He was the first to produce the oracle of God. He who has been for so long the guardian of prophecy and transmitted to the rest of the world. Such a nation cannot be destroyed. The Jew is as everlasting as is eternity. Now, my friends, another very heavy statement. The fact that we still exist today is phenomenal. Quite obvious. Just defies all logic. So we're going to try to show you today a little bit deeper, get a bit deeper in this. So we know we're supernatural. That's pretty amazing. But again, there's doubt. So we know there's two options. We have this book called the Bible. We have this book called the Torah. And the two options we have in front of you is that this book called the Torah either came from the divine or it came from an individual, a group of individuals. Now, what I'm going to try to show you is that this book actually came from a group of individuals or a person. I'll even be that person for argument's sake. And I'm going to show you that this book is not divine, totally made up. No divinity, no God, no Torah. I mean, there's a Torah, but it's, it is what it is. It's just a book, another bestseller. If I succeed, then we're going to have to change the Discovery Seminary from Discovery to Discovery Undiscovered. But if I don't succeed, foreshadow. Then maybe because I'm not succeeding, foreshadow. It's because it actually did come from the divine, post-shadow. But again, you're going to be the judge. We're going to show a series of 7 prophecies, one after the next, that you yourself, again, I'll lay it out for you, are going to see, they not only do not make sense, they pretty much contradict each other. And yet they still come true, showing that, pointing in a direction, some pretty heavy evidence that indeed this book did come from the divine. But again, let's for the sake of having some fun out there, I'm going to show you that it didn't. It actually came from an individual. I will be that individual, and I will start a religion. Okay, so I want you to try to imagine for a moment. Okay, try to imagine for a moment that there is no such thing as, let's go back one more time, sorry about that, and forward. Imagine for a moment, you never heard of this thing called Judaism or God or anything, and I come on the scene and I'm like, all right, ready people? I'd like to start a religion. You say, okay, what is it? I say, I want to call it Judaism. Well, why Judaism? The cat named Judaism. Back off. Yeah, okay, great, fantastic, Judaism. But what's a religion without a prophecy? It's a religion without a prophecy. And I want to be a religion with a prophecy. So we got to up it a little bit. But we're going to start with a little bit of a prophecy, which is an intense, an amazing prophecy. And you guys will be the judges, whether you agree or not. Prophecy number one is that we are going to be an eternal nation. Everybody wants to be eternal, especially the older we get in life. We want to leave a legacy. We want to show people are part of something bigger than themselves. We are going to be an eternal nation. Where do we find this actually written in my book? So if you take a look in Genesis chapter 17, verse 7. This is the first of my 5 books. I will establish a covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations, an eternal covenant to be your God and the God of the descendants after you. What does eternal covenant mean? It means we're going to live forever. We're going to be forever. It's going to be eternal forever, a contract which will always be there. Or another statement which is found in Leviticus, the 3rd of the 5 books, thus even while they are in the lands of their enemies, I will not reject or obliterate them, lest I break my covenant with them by destroying them. For I am the Lord their God. I will remember them because of the covenant I made with their original ancestors, whom I brought out of the lands of Egypt in the sight of the nations, so that I might be their God. So indeed we have found this idea of eternal nation, that we are going to be here forever. Okay, great. So far so good. That's a great opener. That's a great beginning. I mean, you start rah, rah, rah. Now, if anyone here, though, has been involved in business before, you should be asking me one question. Try to imagine I offer you, you give me $1 million, and in 3 years' time, I'll turn into $10 million. Are you in? So some people have this natural to say, no, too good to be true. Others say, yes, I want the money. Those who understand business will say, what's your plan? What's your track record? What have you done? How do you plan to get this done? So I have an idea. We're going to be an eternal nation. So how am I going to guarantee we're going to be an eternal nation? Well, I have a plan. My plan is, people have their eternal, people have their places where they live, their national homelands, People have different places where they live, and that's where they are. We're going to have an eternal national homeland. We're going to have our own little place that we will never leave. We'll never leave there. We'll stay there. We'll build there. We'll create there, and we'll just keep going. So that might be a logical progression. When you say, how am I going to guarantee that we're going to be here forever? The fact that we're going to have a land and we'll stay in that land. What if I told you, well, I have a plan. You want to know how I'm going to guarantee we're going to be an eternal nation? Simple. Next prophecy. I mean, come on. We're going to be exiled and dispersed. Exile and dispersion. Isn't that a great plan? And for those who are actually paying attention at this stage, you should be like, not exactly the most ideal of plans. Yeah, let me show you just a small little list of places that we've been chucked from. As you see beautifully, we have France. Go down the list. France, go down the list. France, Italy, France, Nazi-controlled areas, and Arab lands. Essentially, if you look and you search, and you will find it, we've been chucked time after time, but God will be waiting. Okay, over and over we've been chucked. And where do we find this is actually prophesied? Let's take a look. And you I will scatter among the nations at the point of my drawn sword, leaving your country desolate and your cities in ruins. Or another wonderful quote, I appoint heaven and earth as witness for you today that you will be cut off quickly from the land you are crossing the Jordan to acquire. You shall not remain there long, for you shall be wiped out. God shall then scatter you among the peoples, and you shall be left few in number among the nations, where God will lead you. A lovely bedtime story. So we're seeing over here that exile and dispersion. If you were my committee, I'm trying to get this religion off the ground, I imagine you'd agree this is not exactly the ideal way of getting it done. This would be called strike number 1. Now, you know how baseball works. 3 strikes and you're out. But don't worry, even though we'll be exiled and dispersed, I have a plan, committee, to make sure we're going to get this religion off the ground. What's that? Even though we're exiled and dispersed, Let's take a look and see other people that have been around a very long time, and maybe we could use their methodology of survival. So, like China, India, Japan, these are peoples that have been around with their culture and their heritage for a very long time. So what's used? What was their magic? How did they survive for so long? So let's take a look at what they did, and maybe we'll learn from them. Let's start with Japan. They don't know, how is it that Japan survived for so long intact? How is it? How? So for those who know a little bit about geography, you'll know simply because Japan is in the middle of Japan. You see, if you want to go to Japan, you got to travel pretty far, especially back in the day. You had to take boats. It wasn't so simple just to go to Japan. It's like, hey, where are you going? I'm going to Japan. It doesn't work like that. You have to try. In the 1600s, I think it was, the Mongols tried twice to take over Japan, but there was a monsoon, a typhoon. It's just too hard to get there. To see, because Japan is in the middle of nowhere. So maybe we will use the same method of survival, and whatever our land that we find ourselves, we'll make our land in the middle of nowhere. And that's why we did that. We made our land in the middle of nowhere, right? Wrong. Not only is Israel not in the middle of nowhere, it's in the middle of the East. It's in the middle of everywhere. It's the land bridge between 3 different continents. If you wanted to go to Europe, Africa, or Asia, you have to travel through Jerusalem. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, is the most conquered city in the world. It's been conquered in upwards of 1 million times. That's totally not true. About 36 times. But it's been built upon, built upon, built upon. I don't know if you had the privilege of coming to Israel, of coming to Jerusalem. It's amazing. You go on the tunnel tours. There's a tour you can see how it's been built upon and built upon and built upon and built upon. It's an amazing experience to see. So clearly we didn't use Japan's method of survival. But how about China and India? Well, how did they survive for so long? Don't get thrown up by Nepal. There could be a lot of answers, but you know what one major one is? Just the sheer number of people. There are so many people. There are billions of them. We're going to try to overcome China. Let's go. Let's attack. We're going to come with how many? 1 million strong. There are over 1 billion of them, close to 2 billion of them. You understand? What are you going to do? You think you can beat them? It's just too much. So maybe we'll do the same thing. So many numbers. So my next prophecy, even though we'll be exiled and dispersed, my next prophecy of how we will survive for so long, simply and obviously will be, we're going to be few in number. Huh? Few in number, says the community? That doesn't make any sense. But that's the next prophecy. Let's take a look and see what it says over here. And you shall remain few in number among the nations where God shall lead you. Wow, that's pretty explicit. Now, a lot of times people ask me, especially when they're in my class in person, they ask, but doesn't the Bible say that we're going to be as numerous as the stars of the heavens? That is a wonderful question. For that, I turn to the next quote. You shall remain few in number, whereas you could have become as numerous as the stars of the heavens because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God. The fact that we exist, that's not contingent. We're going to be here. How many we're going to be, okay, that's contingent on a certain way of behavior. It's a little bit strange when you think about it. The first commandment in the Bible is be fruitful and multiply. Peru, Uravu, and Waluasaretz have lots of kids. We know the average secular couple has between 1.2 kids and a dog. I know what you're thinking. Where's the 0.2? Well, there you go. The average religious couple has between 14 and 36 children. Okay, I'm kidding. But whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. Let's do the math. We are an ancient people. We have a high birth rate. We should have tons and tons of Jews. What's going on over here? Yet, how many Jews are there in the world today? Pretty crazy. If you take a look at the following, you'll see. There was a census done. Don't get caught up by the exact grid over here going up. It's a depiction of you'll see what I mean. In 200 BCE, there was a census done where they found that there were between 30 million Chinese people in the year 200 BCE. In the year 200 BCE, there was a census done, and they found that there were between approximately 30 million people in China. Today, that number is over, this is not an accurate number anymore, it's over 1.3 billion. We're talking about probably closer to 2 billion people today. That's pretty nuts. How about this? we know that if you look in that there's estimated near 1 CE, it's estimated there are between 6 and 8 million Jews around. If we took the same growth rate, just as China, it doesn't have to be, I'm just saying the example, we should be today somewhere between 250 and 700 million Jews. We should have somewhere around 400 million Jews in the world today, at least. Yet how many Jews are there? See that little line at the bottom over there? Approximately 14 million Jews. 14 million Jews in the whole world, my friends. We're going to be few in number. Who would have predicted such a thing? And who could have predicted such a thing? Just normally, we would have been growing at such rates. Everyone likes to think, well, yeah, but we had Holocaust, we had pogroms. That's true, fine. But even with the question, who could have predicted this so many thousands of years ago? Oh, by the way, even the Holocaust, there were 18 million Jews before the Holocaust. So we're not talking about like there were hundreds of millions. The numbers just don't add up. Yet it was prophesied that we are going to be few in number. And let's take a look at this on a pie chart. Let's face it, we all love pie. Population of China, of the world, 20% of the world is Chinese, 19% of the world is India, and the Jews, can I get a little sliver over there? It's the little sliver over there. Someone always argues with me, is it 0.2 or 0.02? The point is that we're a very small slice of the pie. Pretty crazy, my friends, few in number. Hey, so I have a plan. We're going to be an eternal nation. Yeah, sure, we'll be here forever. Yet we're going to be few in number. We're going to be exiled this person, few in number. I think that's strike number 2. I don't think that's going to show such a good idea. But I have an idea. I have a plan that even though we exile this person, few in number, to show that we're still going to survive. You know what that is? That is, like the Beatles said so beautifully, all you need is love. So you ready for my next prophecy? And how it could be that we're going to survive for so many years? Next prophecy is, the whole world is going to hate us. Anti-Semitism. Doesn't that fit beautifully with our survival? Let's take a look and see where does this actually speak it out. So look at the Holy Bible. It says, whenever you're ready, Deuteronomy. And those of you who survive in the lands of your enemies, I shall make so faint-hearted that if leaves rustle behind them, they will flee headlong as from the sword, that no one pursues them, stumbling over one another as to escape a weapon, while no one is after them. So helpless, helpless, helpless we be to take a stand against our foes. You shall perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies shall consume you. A lovely bedtime story. And another one. Among those nations you shall find no respite, no rest for your foot. There God will make you cowardly, destroying your outlook, and you will be terrified, never show of your existence. In the morning you will say, if only were night, and in the evening you will say, if only were morning. Such will be the dread that your heart will feel, and the sights that your eyes will see. What is this coming from? From love? I think, my friends, this ain't coming from such love, but if you want it more explicit, you actually have a quote from the Talmud. The Talmud is found in Shabbos on page 89, Peites Amud Aleph, 89a. If you're looking at the screen right now, it's on your left side. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You'll see over here, the bottom line, you see where the red line is? If you go to the right, because Hebrew starts on the right, you see the Gemara asks, says the Talmud, My Har Sinai, what is Mount Sinai? Why is it called Mount Sinai? Says the Talmud, Har Sheyarda Sina La'akum. It is a mountain that hatred came down to the world. Isn't that lovely? We have been hated from our very inception. I'm told it's a good movie. I never saw it. But Har Sheyarda Sina La'akum, that hatred came to the world. Now, those are a little bit more advanced. So maybe familiar with the fact that Sinai or Sinai and Sinna are spelt differently. However, one of them actually is Aramaic and one is Hebrew. The word for hatred in Hebrew is Sinna. In Aramaic, it's actually Sinna with spelled like Sinai, is like Sinai. Nonetheless, we find that we've been hated from our very existence. Now, you don't really need me to be able to break this down because anyone who's not living under a rock knows something pretty crazy. If you hate black people, now that took a weird turn, didn't it? It didn't. Relax. If you hate black people, what are you called if you hate a black person? You are called a racist. If you hate white people, what are you called? A racist. If you hate Arabs, what are you called? A racist. A lot of people like to say Islamophobe. Islamophobia means a fear of. So Islamophobia means fear of, but not hatred. All right, so we have over here, we hate Arabs. If you hate Asian people, what are you called? A racist. If you hate Jews, what are you called? Anti-Semite. Isn't that lovely? We have our own special name for it. Now, what is an anti-Semite? Anti-Semite, my friends, is as follows. Anti-Semitism, take a look with me. Anti-Semitism, anti-noun, discrimination against or prejudice or hostility toward Jews. A particular focused hatred. Now, a lot of people like to think, well, look at the word itself, though. Anti-Semitism. Anti means against. Doesn't Semitism mean like Semite? We know that Noah had 3 sons. He had a son named Shem, a son named Cham, and a son named Yafes. Shem, Cham, and Yafes. So what does Semite come from? Semite comes from the word Shem. If you're from Shem, you are a Semite, from the son of Noah. Jews come from Shem. So if you're anti-Semite, you're anti-Jew. But guess what else? Who else comes from Shem? Arabs. Arabs also come from Shem. So if the Arabs also come from Shem, so then why are you saying it's only Jews? Arabs also, it should be called an anti-Semite. The answer, my friends, is although you're right, etymologically speaking, if you just broke down the word, you would think that's what it would mean, anti-Semitism. It's just not right historically. Historically, there was a fellow by the name of Wilhelm Marr. Wilhelm Marr was a German journalist in 1879, and he was around in Germany. He said there's such a hatred towards the Jews, it needs its own name. So he coined the phrase anti-Semitism. Isn't that crazy? A word that was created, although yes, if you really just break down the word, but he coined the phrase particularly toward Jews. There's actually a lot of words that were created just for Jews, a lot of them. Maybe you've heard of the word ghetto. Although now people say like, yo, I'm from the ghetto, yo, where I'm from. Really? Do you live behind barbed wire and you have a star on you? The word ghetto was first used for Jews. Or pogrom. Or how about Holocaust? Holocaust, although Greek in origin, Holocaust was first used for Jews. What about genocide? Again, now, just for Jews. What about money? Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But you got my point. There's a lot of words that are used just for us. Pretty scary to think about. It gets a little bit further than that. You take a look, you start to see, my friends, that there's something known as the uniqueness of how much Jewish people are hated. We have over here something called universality, intensity, longevity, and irrationality. Let's start with universality. Where around the world have we been hated? Everywhere is correct. Pretty much across the globe, anywhere you're going to go, you're going to find it. How about intensity? How much are we hated? Well, that'll be a technical glitch over there. It didn't be the black box, but we're sometimes you don't like your neighbor. Like you don't want to live there, them. You don't want them to live near you. But maybe you'll cut their gas line, you'll egg their house. But how many people think of, let's think of the final solution to eradicate, eliminate any Jew anywhere that may be found on the face of the earth. That's pretty intense. What about longevity? Longevity, how long have we been hated? Since the very beginning of the world, we have been hated. Longevity, and how about irrationality? What's amazing is that you could ask 2 people the same question, or maybe even one person twice. Why do you hate Jews? You know why? Because they're so rich. I can't stand how rich they are. And like they don't have any money. You know what I'm saying? Like how they're poor. And because they're beautiful and ugly, different, the same, powerful, weak, dominant, passive leaders, followers, social capitalists, archaic, modern, conservative, radical, are my favorite. I can't stand those religious fanatics. They're such atheists. Because the way it works, my friends, is every generation blames a Jew before. If there's a problem, we are the scapegoat. There will always be that it doesn't matter what it was, we're blamed from across the spectrum in every generation. It's pretty nuts. It's just kind of irrational. And you take a look at that together, it's pretty crazy. But I think the number one study on anti-Semitism was ever done was done by a Professor Cohen. Now, depending on when you're seeing this presentation, whether it's as I'm giving it or it's in 100 years from now, you may not know who this is and just skip over it. But if you do know, there's a professor by the name of Professor Cohen. For those who know who this is, you know. For those who don't, this is a fellow by the name of Sacha Baron Cohen. He is a Jewish actor and comedian, I guess, personality who lives in England. And he made a lot of different characters. This one is known as Borat, where he created a character where he basically does a lot of ideas that are quite anti-Semitic. And Why does he do it? So firstly, he makes a lot of money, made a lot of money doing it. Another reason that he does this idea where he makes these films or these documentaries, these shows which are anti-Semitic is because many people don't know that Sacha Baron Cohen's grandfather survived a little place called Auschwitz. He's a survivor of Auschwitz. And he wanted to show the world that even if a person doesn't know what a Jew is, they're still going to have a hatred towards them. That's when he came out with his hit single, Throw the Jew Down the Well. He went to some bar in Arizona, I believe it was, and he starts singing a song. He's a character, like he pretends he's from a place called Kazakhstan, and he says, hey, this song is called In My Country We Have Problem. And he sings the song, In My Country We Have Problem, and the problem is the Jew. And then when he gets to the chorus, he sings, Throw the Jew down the well, and everybody there starts singing, Throw the Jew down the well, so my country can be free, so his country can be free. You must grab him by his horns, you must grab him by his horns, and then we'll have a big party. And I'm like, yeah! Imagine he would get up and say, throw the midget down the well, right? Would that go over as well? They say, throw the black person down the well. I was going to say, throw the Jew down the well, and everybody's singing and dancing. What's going on over here? We see, my friends, such a high level of anti-Semitism, even if people don't know, maybe even particularly, but even when they don't know what a Jew is. Okay, that, my friends, is what we call anti-Semitism. Would you say that's going to support my claim of eternal nation? That we are going to be exiled and dispersed, we're going to be few in number, and the whole world will hate us. Yeah, that is a wonderful recipe for survival. Or maybe that's called strike number 3. And you're out. Not exactly a good idea. But please wait, there's more. Because even with all this, what would you expect of people that went through this? Would you expect them to A, survive, or B, not survive? I imagine it would be B, not survive. Now, what do I mean by that? Like Mark Twain said, the Roman, the Persians, the Greeks, everybody, they rose to now they're gone. They maybe had amazing stuff, but now they're finished. But the Jews saw them all, beat them all, and is what he always was. It's pretty crazy. Exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no slowness, weakness of his part. How are we still here? It doesn't make sense. Now, even if we were to survive, which is highly unlikely, but imagine we were to survive all of these prophecies and these events, would you expect that these people would be changing the world and affecting it in an incredible way and having such an impact on society? Or B, crawling on the floor, bleeding from every orifice, waiting to get kicked in the head again? Yeah, I'd go with B also, but fortunately it's not. The next prophecy we have is called, we are going to be a light unto the nations. We are going to affect the world in an incredible way. Really? We're going to be a light to the nations? We're going to affect the world? What does that even mean? Let's take a look and see. Where do we find the prophecy? So first and foremost, we have a quote in Genesis. And it says as follows. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You will become a blessing, and I will bless those that bless you and curse those who curse you. Through you, all the communities of the earth shall be blessed. Or how about this next quote from Isaiah? I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness, and will hold your hand and keep you. And I will establish you as a covenant of the people for a light unto the nations. That's pretty explicit. How about this next one? For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and in thick darkness the nations. But God will shine upon you. Nations then go by your light, and kings by your radiant illumination. Are we going to have an impact on the world? Oh, you better believe it. And how we impact the world? Let me show you like a small little screenshot of some ideas. Who's this guy in the top left corner? Top left corner, that would be Albert Einstein. Has he affected the world? Oh, yeah, he's made some pretty big impact on the world over there. He was a Jew. What's that coin in the middle? The bottom right, like a little bit, middle right is what I meant. That would be called, you could see it on the screen, it says on it, Alfred Nobel. That would be the Nobel Prize. We're less than 1/4% of the world population, yet we have more than 1/4 of Nobel Prize winnings. That is a statistical anomaly. That is pretty phenomenal. How about right in the middle, the bottom? That would be called a kosher phone or a cell phone. Cell phone technology created by Jews, Israelis. Bottom left corner, that's called drip irrigation. Although Israel does not really have so much water. They are the leader in water recycling. 80% of the water in Israel is recycled. That, my friends, is a phenomenal feat. It's called drip irrigation as opposed to flood irrigation. You take a look at a video where you see that they flood the fields with water. Over here, it's like they have like an IV, like a little tube around every plant or every tree. And that just drips out. It saves 80% of the water. 80% of the water is used. And amazing, phenomenal. Okay, just a small little list of things that we find over here. But is that what we mean when we say we're going to be a light into the nations? Be a secular mathematician and scientist? My friends, we mean something so much more than that. We mean something so much more than that. What we mean by being a light into nations is something known as monotheism. Monotheism, the fact that we know that there's one God. And coming from that one God is something known as morals and ethics. Let's take a look and see one of my favorite quotes. Really amazing quote from John Adams, second president of the United States of America. He was a bit loony, but he was a pretty important person. He says the following: I will insist that the Hebrews have done more to civilize men than any other nation. If I were an atheist and believed in blind eternal fate, I should still believe that fate had ordained the Jews to be the most essential instrument for civilizing the nations. If I were an atheist of the other sect, I should believe that chance had ordered the Jews to preserve and propagate to all mankind the doctrine of a supreme, intelligent, wise, almighty sovereign of the universe, which I believe to be the great essential principle of all morality and consequently of all civilization. They are the most glorious nation that ever inhabited this earth. The Romans and their empire are but a bauble in comparison to the Jews. They have given religion to 3/4 of the globe and have influenced the affairs of mankind more and more happily than any other nation, ancient or modern. Phenomenal! We're the most glorious nation, and we have people that are running away from Judaism. My friends, are we crazy? Running away from Judaism? It's the most incredible opportunity to be a Jew and to be part of this magnificent nation that affects the world in such a powerful way, yet running away. There's something very wrong. Either we just don't, I would just say we just don't know the value. We just don't appreciate what the value is. So let's take a look and see what we have, my friends, so far. That would be what we call prophecy number 5. But we're not done. We're not done. Number 6 and 7 really pretty much take this home over here. The next prophecy I'm going to share with you is that something known as interdependence. I should say interdependence, forgive me. Interdependency, a relationship and a connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel itself. Let's take a look and see. Look at this. What did the land of Israel look like before the Jews got there? Originally, we're in Egypt. Where is God taking us out of Egypt to? Exodus chapter 3, verse 8. I've come down to rescue them from Egypt's power. I will bring them out of the land to a good, spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. To a land flowing with milk and honey. A beautiful, gorgeous land. And the Jewish people, if you don't believe it from the Bible, take a look from Josephus, who was a historian living at the times of the temple. He says the following: for the whole area is excellent for crops and pastures and rich in trees of every kind. So by its fertility invites even those least inclined to work on the land. In fact, every inch of it has been cultivated by the inhabitants, not a parcel goes to waste. It is thickly covered with towns, and thanks to the natural abundance of the soil, the many villages are so densely populated that the smallest of them has more than 15,000 inhabitants. If you don't understand what just happened, what it basically said is, the land is awesome. The land is awesome. They had this gorgeous, delicious land. And when the Jews come down to, amazing, what happened when the Jews leave? What happened when the Jewish people leave the land of Israel? And don't think nobody tried to live here. You had the Greeks, the Byzantines, the Babylonians, Mamluks, Fatimids. Don't get me started on the Abbasids, the Romans. So many people tried to live here, but they weren't able to do one thing, and that's grow the land. So devastated will I leave the land that your enemies who live there will be astonished. Your land will remain desolate and your cities in ruins. Or we take a look, my friends, what happens to this gorgeous lands when we leave? It becomes this barren, desolate wasteland. And that barren, desolate wasteland is not my own words. I am quoting from our friend again from the beginning, Mark Twain, otherwise known as Yellow Circle Head Boy. Not really, but this is a picture of Mark Twain when they go to make their way to the land of Israel. Mark Twain came along to the land, and he came to visit Israel in 1867. We're talking about 153 years ago. If you're watching this in 2020 vision, well, we know it's 153 years ago. It's not long ago. Mark Twain comes along and he says the following: we traverse some miles of desolate country. whose soil is rich, but is given wholly to weeds. A silent, mournful expanse. A desolation is here that not even imagination can grace with the pomp of life and action. We reached Tabor safely. We never saw a human being on the whole route. We pressed on towards the goal of our crusade, renowned at Jerusalem. The further we went, the hotter the sun got, the more rocky and bare, repulsive and dreary the landscape became. There was hardly a tree or shrub anywhere. Even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of a worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. No landscape exists that is more tiresome to the eye than that which bounds the approaches to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is mournful, dreary, and lifeless. I would not desire to live here. It's a hopeless, dreary, heartbroken land. Palestine sits in sackcloth and ashes. Palestine is no more of this workday world. It is sacred to poetry and tradition. It is dreamland. Would you agree with that? Is that true? Is Israel no more of this workday world? Would you say that the land of Israel does not give anything to the global market in any way, shape, or form? I think anyone who knows anything about the economy will know that not only is Israel a player in the global market, it's a big player. But some might say, well, okay, that's in technology, but what about agriculture and the land itself? So I want to share with you as recently as 2005 is when I heard this idea, but I'm sure since there's been amazing stories. You know, in 2005, there's a place called Gush Katif, which was supplying vegetables to the entire country. Unfortunately, we're not in Gush Katif anymore. However, the Jewish people were there, and they were farming, and they were spreading out lands, and the government decided to give this place, Gush Katif, to the Arabs. However, just understand something phenomenal. The year in 2005, not only was Israel giving growing fruits and vegetables for Israel, they were exporting to the world in excess of $200 million a year in produce. No more of this workday world? $200 million a year in produce. That is phenomenal. That's crazy. My friends, I think we are connected. I think that Israel is connected. I think that the land, as they call it, Palestine, is doing some pretty amazing things right now. What is phenomenal to note is that when they did give the land back to the Arabs in 2000, when they gave the land away to the Arabs in 2005, and the Jews left the land, not Israel, but they left that land, they had a hard time, and the land was not producing. It was producing maybe 10% of what it used to produce when the Jews were living there. So the Arabs that were living there called up the Jews that left and said, what did you do to the land? You know what's going on over here? Why is the land not producing? And they said, we didn't do anything to the land. We didn't do anything to the land. So maybe they say, oh, the Jews have a secret way of growing the produce and the Arabs didn't know about. Guess what? The very same Arabs that were living there and trying to grow the stuff were the same Arabs that were being employed by the Jews to work there before they had to give away the land. So we see there's a relationship between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. That is a pretty fascinating idea, where around it starts to grow, if not as much. I mean, this is something crazy is going on over here. So I think that this idea of Mark Twain, listen, it made sense then, but it ain't dreamland anymore. And if you think about how phenomenal that is, try to imagine the Native Americans. They're living in America, and white man arrives. What do you think? What happens? So the chief calls everyone together, and he says, land, when white man arriveth, do not sprout vegetation or herbs of any kind. Remain barren, desolate, remain a wasteland. Little chief, small bear, big river, let's go. And we know, from the moment the Native Americans left America, it has remained a barren, desolate wasteland. But that's simply not true. We've built it up to this amazing country, it's a superpower of the world, second only to Amazon. You start to see that even though maybe they had some sort of connection with the land, that's only when they're there. When they leave, it's not there anymore. The Jewish people have a connection with their land. When we're there, it grows and not, it stops. Interdependence, a relationship between the land and the people. But last but not least, my friend, the last prophecy, return again, come back to me now. I can hear my old man. The fact that we're going to come back to the land. We're going to return to the land of Israel. Do you realize no people have ever been kicked off their land twice and come back twice, maybe 3 times? It's not normal, yet we're coming back. Let's take a look at a little quote over here. So the quote says, "Then the Lord your God shall return you from your captivity and have compassion upon you. He shall return and gather you from among the nations, and the Lord your God will bring you into the land that your fathers inherited. You will acquire it, and he will make you even more prosperous and numerous than your fathers." Or another quote in Jeremiah, "For thus said God, shout with joy for Jacob, exalted ahead of the nations, proclaim your praise and say, O God, deliver your people, the remnant of Israel. Behold, I will bring them back from northern lands and gather them from the ends of the world." That is amazing. We're going to come back to the land of Israel. Crazy. And the Jews start to make their way back. What was the percentage, the population of Jews living in Israel in the year 1900? Anyone know percentage-wise of Jews? Take a guess. It's right there up on the screen. About 0.5% of the Jewish people were living in Israel in the year 1900. Today, in 2020, I don't think that number is accurate anymore. This will put up a little more. We are over, I believe, the 50% mark of Jews living in Israel. In 120 some odd years, to go from 0.5 to over 50%, that is a statistical impossibility. You understand? That's crazy. And here we are. Here we are going ahead and building it up and rebuilding this land. You know why? Quite simply because, my friends, you know that. To make any disruption happen, Jewish people should have come back and built it up. It was nothing. It was barren. It was desolate. If you were to tell your great-grandparents you're going to be visiting Israel or living in Israel and learning about Judaism, they'd say, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. But here we are. We're the land of Israel. We've built it up to this amazing, amazing superpower. But I'll tell you the truth. The reason why I'm still talking is because I'm waiting for the piano solo. I'm coming home, na na na, na na na, na 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 na. Okay, good, great, fantastic. So that, my friends, is what's known as return. We're going to come back to the land of Israel. That is phenomenal. It kind of defies all logic, the fact that we are here, which brings us back to the very beginning. Let's take a look at everything we said. We said we're going to be an eternal nation. We're going to be exiled and dispersed. We're going to be few in number. We're going to have anti-Semitism, light into the nations, interdependency, and we're going to come back to the land. I want you to try to imagine for a moment, okay? There's a little place in Israel, in Jerusalem, in the city center. There's an area known as Crack Square. For those who have visited, you know what I'm talking about. For those who haven't, it's called Crack Square. Now, the reason it's called Crack Square is because the pavement's a little bit uneven over there. But really, there's a lot of people that do crack there. Now, I want you to try. Now, maybe they've cleaned it up. I don't know. But it was called Crack. It still is called Crack Square. Because it wasn't. Anyway, you get my point. I want you to imagine you're standing at Crack Square. And suddenly someone comes over to you. And when they come over to you, they say, hey. Like suddenly, from nowhere, they're like, yo, hey. Yo. Hey, eyes all red. And you're like, yeah, what? They're like, yo, listen. Escuchas. Yo, tishma, habibi, listen up. In 10 minutes, in 10 minutos, in 10 minutes, there's going to be a little rumble. The ground's going to shakety shake. It's going to open up. 10 golden chariots are going to pop out. They're going to circle your head 3 times, and then they're going to fly off. Yeah, yo, listen. And then the guy would walk away. What would be going through your mind? Another day at the office? Probably, hey, I'm in Crack Square. Probably watch myself. What would you then think if 10 minutes later, the ground started to shake? And you're like, oh mi Dios, que festo, you take a step back. And suddenly, the ground opens up. And 9 golden chariots pop out. And you say, I thought 10. And then the 10th one pops out. And it starts circling your head 3 times. And then they fly off. What would you then be thinking? You didn't do anything. You were involved in any illegal or decriminalized activities. You're totally sober. What would you then be thinking? That guy knew what's up. Was he a prophet? How do you know what's going on over there? Maybe I should try to find who that guy was. My friends, let me share with you the screen at least one more time, and listen carefully. We said that we are going to be an eternal nation. That itself, come on, who could make such a claim? And then we were exiled and dispersed, and we survived. Do you realize that exile and dispersion by itself, that's crazy? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Yet, here we are. Few in number. And that alone is a miracle that we still exist. Now put them together. We'll be exiles and be few in number? Come on. Anti-Semitism, we're going to be hated by everyone. That alone is a phenomenon that we still exist. It doesn't make sense. I put them together. We're going to exile and disperse, few in number, and everyone's going to hate us. And we're going to be a light to the nations. Come on. And we're going to love our land that's going to love us. And we're going to come back to the land. I mean, does that make any sense? That, my friends, is phenomenal. You know, the ground opening up and 10 golden chariots flying over your head 3 times and going away, that's phenomenal. But what puts it above and beyond? The fact that it was predicted. Exile and dispersion. Few in number. Anti-Semitism. Led into the nations. Interdependence. Return. Each one of those is phenomenal by themselves. Put them together, it don't make no sense. But what puts it above and beyond? The fact that it was all predicted beforehand. My friends, I want you to take a good look at this one last time and understand what we're talking about here. When Blaise Pascal said, you want to know something, evidence of a supernatural force, the Jews, Your Majesty, the Jews. History is the barometer of truth. We get to take a look. Hindsight is 2020. We're in the year 2020. We get to look back. Then they didn't need to prove it because they lived with the fact that there was a God and they experienced it. But maybe now, through bumps and bruises along the way, we've lost it. But when we look back now, we get to see, oh my goodness, who would have predicted such a thing? Who could have predicted such a thing? Eternal nation, exile, dispersion, few in number, anti-Semitism, light to the nations, and dependency in return. My friends, this, I believe, is some pretty heavy evidence to show that the hand that wrote this book could not have been an individual group of individuals or a shadow, but rather the hand that wrote this book is none other than the hand of the divine, the hand of what we call God. Thank you so much for joining us, and please feel free to continue looking at other presentations that deal with the Discovery Seminar, other resources. Thank you so much once again. This is Rav Gav signing out from Yerushalayim Yer Kodesh. Bye-bye.